right, you ready?
I think so. I hope so.
Let's make sure we're on right.
Check
Bam! Nailed it on the first go. All right, let's make sure.
We gotta do straighten.
All right, this is the contributor appreciation episode of the Soapbox. Take one. Welcome to the Soapbox.
Just one take. We're not doing multiple.
Pretty much.
My bad.
All right. Let's make sure, let's get the mic in the right spot. I hope you guys are doing all right today. This is contributor appreciation. Mrs. Thomas was able to join me today. Get to that. Okay, perfect. Yeah, Mrs. Thomas is able to join me today. And because she's able to join me, I'm going to put her to work immediately and get her to explain what contributor appreciation is.
Oh, I haven't been able to do this in so long.
I know,
long has
right?
it been since I've been?
It's been weeks.
Maybe 3 weeks
since
we've had the proper duo for contributor appreciation. So we've already got 160 people here. So
excellent.
Welcome. If you're new here, give a thumbs up, like in the comments. If you are new here, you might not know that that's what I do during the show. Part of my contribution to the contributor appreciation show is monitoring the chats. If you got something to say it, and I'll try to pick it out and insert it into the conversation. Anyway, today is Contributor Appreciation Day. We strive for once a week shows where Jamarl takes time out to do topics suggested by you all, the viewers. And we put a post on the Patreon platform and allow patrons to comment and say, this is what we want to hear this week. Can you please address this topic? And so that is what we have done, and that is what we use to fuel today's show. Yes. If you are not familiar with what Patreon is, it is a platform that allows you, the viewer, to support content creators. So you say, I really like the videos that Jamarl produces. I want to make sure that he can still continue to create content, and I'm going to pledge a monthly contribution, $1, $5, $20, whatever, and every dollar does help. And so you go to Patreon, which is in the link below, and you sign up to be a patron. Also, if you are contributing through PayPal, Streamlabs, and Super Chats, thank you as well. Please always send your topic suggestions, and you can do that via email. If you are not contributing monetarily, that is perfectly fine too. We appreciate you being here. Thank you for your support. Just make sure that you are subscribed and hit the bell notification icon so that when new videos come out, you can be sure to catch them. Share the content, and if you're watching a video, join in the chat, because we have some really good people, really good,
bright
regulars.
Regular.
That's what I was going to say. We have really good regulars, and the chats can get really good. Sometimes it's shenanigans that goes in chats, and I have to call some people savages last week because of their potty mouths. But generally, it is good conversation. So if you are viewing and you are near your device, then try to engage in the chat. And if you're enjoying the video, give it a thumbs up so that he knows that you are enjoying the content.
All right.
Good? Uncle Brother. Oh, yes. Wait a minute. Let me check. Is this our first super chat? Is Uncle Brother says yes. Aisha
Welcome. So.
What is that? I see you giggling already.
All right. So let's start with some good news first.
Is that the pandemic?
Right. Because everybody is moping around. It's the middle of a pandemic. We're stuck in the house. I've been craving some way to get out of the house, hopefully going on some kind of trip or something like that. Up to this point, that hasn't happened, and I don't necessarily think that's going to happen anytime soon because we're stuck in the house. So, Isolation. So we're also stuck in the house at work, meaning I've been doing my show.
Working from home.
And that's going to be like that for the foreseeable future. So let's start off.
What is this video
you're about to play?
With
good news.
Put that
first.
on the screen. I don't think that looks like good news.
No, this is fucking hilarious. I've been sitting here laughing my ass off at this. Let's start with some good news. Let's take a listen.
Okay. Center. Hey, babe. Hold on, guys. Lish is on my shoulders. What's going on?
That's not funny.
Oh, that's hilarious.
This is what happens
When you're stuck in
people
house.
are in isolation.
Day
The
18.
things that I have seen going out on social media, the shenanigans that people are getting up to is
That's 18 days
ridiculous. Some of the worst ones, of course, I see where people are with their kids. I saw one yesterday where this lady posted, we're only on day 2 and the kid has already broken the TV. And it was this massive, like 50-something TV, and it was completely screwed. So
That's massively messed up. I mean, I've been sitting here watching these videos. These videos have been utterly hilarious.
Some of them were pretty funny.
Yeah, some of them were funny. Here's another one. This one is not necessarily funny, more historical context. So right now, the United States, we don't have the beds that we need. We don't have the ventilators that we need. We don't have, the tools.
We don't even have the PPE, which is the protection equipment
Right.
that doctors need. They are literally getting donations from like private sector and individuals for masks and gloves because doctors in the hospital do not have enough supplies.
Now, Cuba, however, small Cuba that's been under, you can say, a certain quarantine, a trade embargo going for the past 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
Well, they decided to invest a shitload of money in scientists and doctors and hospitals and medicine and everything else. Mm-hmm. So what they lacked in, let's say, their interactiveness with the rest of the world in the sense of materials, they had in knowledge. Cuba has been sending its doctors literally around the world to go to the various locations to help. This is Castro talking about the doctor thing. And the reason why I'm showing this is because this became one of the conversation pieces. That's weird.
When was this video made?
This video was made several
Something's going on with the
years
screen,
ago.
guys.
All right, let's see.
Nuestro país no lanza bombas contra otros pueblos, ni manda miles de aviones a bombardear ciudades. Nuestro país no posee armas nucleares ni armas.
Basically, this is Fidel Castro. He's speaking in a different language. But basically what he's saying is, look, we don't have nuclear weapons. We don't have all of this other stuff. We have our money into scientists and
that's
doctors.
what we're investing in.
And 50 years later, when there's a corona epidemic, where the United States is now the number one country for that epidemic, and the number one country for that epidemic, the epicenter at this point, is telling other countries to not use the Cuban doctors to help them out. Isn't that mind-blowing? And while we're saying don't use those Cuban doctors, we're also putting sanctions on Iran and putting sanctions on Venezuela, making their situation that much worse so they can't get access to the drugs, the medicines, and the protective equipment that they need. Like, that's your country. Think about that.
I was shocked.
Think about that. That's mind-blowing.
It seems like that's just par for the course.
And just so you can see where we are on the coronavirus, might as well start here. The United States, number one. 139,746 cases. As you can see, that is almost double everybody else. Italy is bad. China is less bad at this point.
Yeah. Wow.
Look at the number of new deaths, 228. This number is going up exponentially.
Now, I do have a question.
Go for it.
Specifically in regards to the new cases.
Right here.
So new
60,000.
deaths, that's pretty clear and cut and dry. But in regards to the new cases, I'm pretty sure that we have seen a significant jump based on the fact that we are just now starting to implement the type of testing that we should have been implementing some time ago.
Well, there are 2 points to that. So the jumping of the disease is exponential, meaning it's like whatever the number is, oftentimes as it's going from day to day to day, the number is spiking.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily jump in a linear way. Also, we knew that number was going to be dramatically higher. And we knew that
we weren't
months ago.
The way we're supposed to.
I mean, we weren't testing. We didn't have the equipment. Donald Trump downplayed it the entire time. People weren't self-isolating. And now you have the situation in places like New York, San Francisco, Washington State that are getting swamped. New York, you should listen to the stories coming out of New York and look at some of those videos coming out of New York. It is mind-blowing. The number of respirators. And by the way, just to make a point of this, look at this story. The United States tried to build a new fleet of ventilators. Now, they were looking for a low-cost ventilator that pretty much all of the hospitals and everything can get in case of an emergency. Mm-hmm. And the United States government was working with a smaller company in order to do that. That smaller company gets bought out by a larger company. And because it wasn't profitable enough, Scrub the project. Scrub the project. Your capitalistic system at work. They couldn't make enough profit off of it. Isn't that amazing? America. And so now you have a situation where they've done a bailout, and Donald Trump has signed that bailout, and they're going to
What was that, $1.5 trillion?
No, $2 trillion. But technically, in the real terms, it boils down to about $4.5 trillion for the capitalist class to spend. And in order to balance this, they're just going to give $1,200 one-time fee. This doesn't deal with the ventilators. This doesn't deal with the people's rents. This doesn't deal with the car notes. This doesn't deal with other kind of loans or bills. This doesn't deal with their evictions from rental, like apartments. Doesn't deal with any of that. This is one-time $1,200 check for something that is going to perpetuate itself for months.
Right.
And when you ask, meaning this is a bailout. This is a bailout.
So in comparison, a plan that I heard that I thought was a good response. Canada is giving $2,000 every month for 4 months.
Yes.
In comparison to our $1,200
for 1 month. And they had to fight
month.
even for just unemployment insurance. Meaning they were even trying to gut that part of the bill itself. Like, I think you need to understand what we're saying when we say corporate bailout. When the Republican Party goes out and says, we're going to pass this tax cut, and people on the left are like, yeah, BS, we don't want that tax cut. Now, we're saying that not because we don't want extra money in our paycheck, but we realize the $2 that you get is drastically different than the $20 million that billionaire gets.
Right.
And the entire reason and structure of that tax cut is not for you, it's for them. They're gutting your government of services and money in order to give to their cronies. Well, now, every crisis that you come in contact with, you don't think it's a little bit weird that they end up always, regardless of the crisis, sending a bunch of money to banks? Sending a bunch of money to industries, the money that Boeing is getting and the airline industry is getting, the cruise. In
comparison, like percentage-wise, it's
dwarfs
the amount that
of going to human beings.
The individuals are going.
And again, this is not dealing with ensuring that the people have health care. This doesn't deal with to make sure that the coverage of the bills. This doesn't deal with making sure that they have the test kits and everything else.
$1,200 isn't going to cover a ton of people's rent.
No, it's not. And you want to hear what Trump is talking about after giving all of this money, trillions, to the capitalist class? Listen to the way Trump talks about this.
A lot of the numbers that are being said in some areas are just bigger than they're going to be. I don't believe you need 40,000 or 30,000 ventilators. You go into major hospitals sometimes, they'll have 2 ventilators. And now all of a sudden they're saying, can we order 30,000 ventilators? So, look, it's a very bad situation. We haven't seen anything like it. But
now, this conversation that Trump is having has to do with whether or not they need as many ventilators as they are asking for.
The end result is we got to get back to work, and I think we can start by opening up certain parts of the country, Farm Belt, certain parts of the Midwest, other places. But I have a feeling that a lot of the numbers that are being said in some areas are just bigger than they're going to be.
Now, what he's talking about is the issue of ventilators. And Trump is arguing, look, I don't think we need as many ventilators as these people are asking for. People used to get by with like 2 ventilators, and now they're asking for 30,000. I don't think, we need that much.
He said we're going to potentially open up certain parts of the country.
Yes.
How do you determine what parts of the country are safe enough to open up?
Well, because his argument is there are certain areas that
more
are
congested.
Right. And there are certain areas where the disease is proliferated more than others. But this is foolhardy. There's no health professional that has come out and said that's a good idea. In fact, the opposite. Everybody, including the people who are the infectious disease people working with the White House and working in the government, is saying the exact opposite of what Donald Trump is saying. In fact, Fauci, the one that Trump at this point hates because the guy's an infectious disease specialist, has come out and said he believes that they actually do need those ventilators. Mm-hmm. Like, this is not people making it up. Fauci's
the fuck? What are we doing with them? Like, we're sitting around and smoke the ventilator. Let me add some. Can I add some of this chat to the conversation? Victoria Lawless says Chinese healthcare workers were basically in hazmat suits, and ours are wearing bandanas. Yes. I saw one where there was a hospital worker where they were outfitting the workers, not clinical staff, but like environmental service workers and cleaning and stuff like that, in trash bags. They were covering in trash bags, literally. And one of them contracted the
didn't have the
virus
supplies.
and died.
But think about that. I mean, the United States right now is putting through sanctions in the various countries around the world. We have missiles where Obama was putting $1 trillion on our missile supply. We have forced projection where we send ships all across the world into other countries. In Syria, we spend like $1 trillion on the military budget and defense budget. We have, 400, almost 500,000 beds, hospital beds in the jails or jail beds. And you have a disease, a virus, that is infinitely foreseeable to happen because these things are seasonal to some degree. And your country doesn't have the ability to make masks and coats and protective gear and the drugs. Like,
this video,
how screwed up is that in regards to priorities? How do you have a country that has that much money and can't have the basics of healthcare for its people, but you can have all of these guns and missiles and bullets and weapons?
because the people aren't the priority. What year was it? A couple years ago when they were saying they were giving X amount of dollars to the military, and it was the Air Force or something. They were like, we don't need that money. And they were like, fuck that. You're taking the money anyway.
Yeah, you're taking the money
They
anyway.
were like pushing all this extra money on into the budget from some, I think it was the Air Force. And they were literally saying we don't need that money. And I don't know who it was in office. Anyway, GDNPB, thank you for the super chat, says it's too bad we don't have something like a Center for Disease Control to handle epidemics like this. Oh wait, I guess we wasted billions.
Well, those
on
were
one.
gut. That was the other part. Trump got that when he took office. And let's be honest, though. I mean, it wasn't necessarily something that was a priority for us anyway.
Yeah, no.
Like,
that's
over
even
and
worse.
over again, when you're looking at people getting those tax cuts, when you're looking at people gutting the government, that money comes from somewhere. Hey, one of those places, disease control or prevention or pandemic prevention. Like, these are industries that these guys continuously cut. Here's another one. Trump is now talking about restarting the economy. Again, just to make the point, this is where we are. We are the epicenter of the coronavirus. This number is jumping, almost doubling every day, and it's only going to get worse. Donald Trump is saying this.
Other places, but I think that I don't believe you need 40,000 or 30,000 ventilators. You know, you go into major hospitals sometimes, they'll have 2 ventilators, and now...
Wait a minute. That's not the exact
They
video I
have
wanted.
2 ventilators. Oh wow, they are they are out of control with this ventilator.
And this
situation.
is Fauci. And Fauci was answering questions on the difference between this and the flu, and he was kind of being very clear that no, there is a big difference between this and the flu. Here is, and then you ask Trump, this guy asked Trump, how many deaths are you willing to accept with this? Now, again, I've argued, I've shown this for weeks now, saying Trump is going to kill people. Trump is going to kill people. The policies that he's going with is going to kill people.
Yeah.
I don't care what his approval rating is. What he's going to do is going to kill people. Trump is asked by a reporter, because they understand what you're doing is going to kill people, how many people dead are you willing to accept in the policy that you're pushing forward in order to kickstart the economy?
Shah, who is the head of Harvard's Global Health Institute, says that the key to getting this economy open as soon as possible is to test everyone who needs testing so we can quarantine all infected individuals and allow everyone else to go back to work immediately. Would you subscribe to that strategy?
No, but we have tested more than anybody. I saw it.
And if not, how many deaths are acceptable?
Yeah. How many? None.
What the fuck?
Now, understand what he just said. He says, we've tested more than anyone.
Bullshit.
Like,
Bullshit.
It's amazing how he laughs like that. Like, and how does nobody say,
Bullshit.
Mr. President, we've tested X amount. Are you saying that those numbers are wrong? Nobody says that. They just accept that he's a liar. And he's been going on television over and over and over again, just lying, just saying stuff like that. He's going to get people killed. Literally so. Now, if your name, in fact, this is a video that's coming out. That's everything in this video is true. Donald Trump is trying to sue to have this video stopped. I do have a point with this. Let's hear it.
The coronavirus.
This is their new hoax.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear. When you have 15 people, and within a couple of days it's going to be down to close to zero, we really think we've done a great job in keeping it down to a minimum. I like this stuff. I really get it. People are surprised that I understand it. No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Now, he's trying to
Jesus.
sue to get that
who
role.
who put this video out?
What is it? Priorities USA Action. It's a Democratic group.
USA.
Yeah, Priorities USA.
That's interesting.
Now, everything in the video is true.
It is.
He's been doing that for months.
Those are quotes.
This is after he was getting an intelligence briefing. This was after the congressmen got their briefings. And we know this is after they got their briefings because those congressmen went out and sold their stocks while telling people at the exact same time, everything is great, the economy is fine, we got it under control. And they went out and sold their stocks. We know what advice he was given. Mm-hmm. That advice was, this shit is going to hit the skids. Yeah. And his response to this was to just lie. To just lie. And the Democratic Party, because they couldn't put up any credible opposition, he gets credit for it. I mean, think about the bill that's passed. That was a Republican bill that went through.
And how hard did Democrats fight?
They fought for the basics.
Corporations, didn't they?
Well, what I mean by that is, it's like the Republicans come up with a bill. Now, Nancy Pelosi has the House. So Nancy Pelosi could have came out with a bill of just saying, we're only going to support giving checks to people. That's it. And then force the Republican Party to come out and say, no, we're going to give money to corporations right now. Mm-mm. Make them have that fight. Nancy Pelosi, didn't do that. So the Republican Party takes the lead and they run with it.
Right.
And when the Republican Party runs with it, the Democrats basically gets the choice of incrementally make the bill better. Not necessarily of something fundamentally different. Now, my argument is that the same people who the Democrats get those tax cuts for year after year after year are the same people who are going to benefit from this plan.
Yeah.
Meaning there's no disincentive for them to push back on this. It's a Republican plan. The Democrats agreed with it, including Sanders. What they fought for was basic stuff like, hey, let's keep in unemployment. But that's what I mean. That's how menial the fight was in the context of the entirety of the bill. And right here, listen to this, and we can get to some super chats. But with everything that has taken place, with everything that I told you, it is empirically true that Donald Trump is killing people. It is empirically true that depending upon the number of people that get infections, that number will go up, meaning the number of deaths. If you're talking about a 1 to 3%, you're talking about tens of thousands, if not millions of people dying. Joe Biden is asked by Chuck Todd, does this mean that the president is responsible for killing these people? If it is indeed malfeasance and incompetence? The answer should be yes. If you're in politics. You have a situation where people are dying as a result of the actions that the president of the United States is taking. You should be hyperbolic.
Not to mention, you are envisioning yourself as being
the president of the United States yourself.
Going toe-to-toe with him in a couple of months. Politically, you should take the opportunity to run him into the ground. Yes. I haven't seen this video. Let's see what he says.
Yeah, right.
You know, your campaign put out in a critique of President Trump and says if he doesn't do these things.
Come on, meet the press.
We like to joke Chuck Todd as being the most oblivious man on the planet. Bob really doesn't like him. But let's hear his answer. Or let's hear his
he could cost lives. Do you think there is blood on the president's hands considering the slow response? Or is that too harsh of a criticism?
I think that's a little too harsh. I think what's happening is the failure to, as I watched a prelim to your show where someone said that used the phrase that the president just thinks out loud.
The only answer should have been yes.
Now, to play devil's advocate, if I was Joe, now watching that and hearing that question, I would be leery to say yes.
What?
Because it sets a precedent if, God forbid, we don't know what's going to happen, creepy Uncle Joe gets into the White House. He doesn't want there to be a precedent that, pandemic goes wrong or the response to a pandemic goes wrong and now it's on the president's hands. The blood is on his hands. If something happens while he's in office.
But that's why hypocrisy is part of politics. They don't typically care. They have to make their case. And if you have to continuously think through, okay, when I fuck up later on, they're going to jump on me. You just got to assume you have to deal with it when it comes up. You should put a knife in Trump right now because...
That was my first thought. But then hearing it, for him to say, yes, the president has blood on his hands. That's rough.
That is rough.
For somebody who was a vice president, and I don't know what the fuck Joe believes, but possibly believes that he's going to be the president again.
But is it not true?
I'm not saying it's not true. I think...
Just to be clear, we had 2 months lead time, meaning we knew what was coming.
I do think that the lack of response or the slowness in response did directly contribute to more deaths than should have been.
This number is going to skyrocket.
Yes.
and not just skyrocket. Trump is now talking about sending people back to work.
I'm not saying
This is him
it's
not
not
having
true.
a ventilator. I guess what I'm saying is it may sound rough, but your job is to win. And part of winning is to cut into Donald Trump's numbers from the standpoint of people believing he's doing a good job. The president has blood on his hands. Yes, the president does have blood on his hands. He hasn't installed the Defense Production Act yet, meaning the tools and the supplies that we need. In World War II, our country was willing to effectively go to war and get other companies to effectively make the supplies we need. That's your opportunity. I said the same thing for Sanders, right? When Sanders gets the opportunity to go against Biden and you need to get the black vote, you put a knife in him. And some people might say, ooh, that's rough. But I tell you this, when people are looking at the person who they want to be their champion and their defender.
It wasn't somebody who's going to fight. You can't defend me if you won't even fight for yourself.
Yes.
And right now, and yeah, okay, so.
Especially for this. Because again, how you act and behave should fit within the context of what's happening. Meaning, if I'm saying the president is going to get people killed, well, you need to behave like somebody.
There's a certain level of panic and passion that should come along with you having a conversation, right?
Yes,
about
meaning
the
it shouldn't be this kind of placid, whoa, that's too hard, Chuck. No, it should be, yes, I think the president has blood on his hands. That's exactly what I think. If I was in that office and I was a person, I would have responded months ago, making sure that the companies were putting the supplies and everything out. The president is still out there talking about opening up work. Yes, you hit him, and you make that strident point. And what the media would say, the media, oh wow, Joe Biden says the president has blood on his hands. Joe Biden has blood on his hands. And the people would look at that, and they would either agree or disagree. That's all. The people who hate Trump would say, yeah, that asshole has blood on his hands. The people who are in the middle, lukewarm, they might hear your argument, but at the very least, you saying it, and it's so provocative that at the very least creates an echo chamber in a conversation. You goddamn right he should have did it. Like, that's a flub. That's just a weak response.
Wait. I got to get to Super Chats before we go on.
I'm sorry.
Mana Talk, thank you for the Super Chat, says, demand Congress invoke the 25th Amendment, Article 4 now. I'm not familiar with what that is. Charles Pereira, thank you for the Super Chat, says, the U.S. and the EU always use death and disease against third world to profit over them. So I'm glad they're finally getting some karma back. I thought I saw another Super Chat.
Yeah, that was it.
What, the amendment?
The president, yeah.
Oh, impeachment?
Yeah.
We are just... Oh, wait, we're almost at 350. So if you're enjoying the show so far, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I'm trying to moderate some of these comments and get to the conversation.
Well, here the...
No, I just go through the... Dilly Y'all 357, thank you for the super chat, says, as a potential nominee, he is already a failure in the midst of this pandemic to show leadership.
Joe Biden.
Yeah, because he was silent for so long, and it was like all this stuff was going on. Sanders came out and had some stuff to say, and everybody was like, where the hell is Joe Biden?
Sanders was out every day making speeches. Yeah, Joe Biden was nowhere to be found. Yeah, he was nowhere to be found. And then when he finally did show up, oh God, it was utterly... Have you seen...
Maybe he shouldn't have been found.
Have you seen his speeches?
No, do you have that one up? Well, wait, you have one up where he gave like an official release on the pandemic.
He came out
Can
with
we
an
watch
official...
that one?
All right, so let's do a few of these. So this is Biden talking to Anderson Cooper. Now, I haven't seen this one myself, I don't think. But
Joe Biden just malfunctioned again.
It's not going to get my point. But anyway, those who've been through that, you can contact my campaign. I'm happy to try to talk to you. Yeah. No. And when you don't have it...
Did I black out?
I have no idea what he's talking
Did
about.
I black out? What happened? Can we start that back again?
Let's try one more time.
It froze and...
Hold on, let's try one more time.
You got to get help. And by the way... Well, it's not going to get my point, but anyway, those who've been through that, you can contact my campaign. I'm happy to try to talk to you.
Yeah. I have no idea what he is talking about.
I don't think he has the idea. It's weird because I'm listening as I'm reading, and I'm like, wait.
But he breaks down.
Am I not paying attention?
No.
And it's like, no, I think I heard what I heard.
He really is.
I just don't understand what just happened.
That bad. I mean, let's see. Here's another one. Okay, here's another one. I'm not sure what this one is. These are Joe Biden conniption fits.
Protect my family, as I've been diagnosed based on my symptoms for the coronavirus. although I cannot be tested due to the limited number of tests available here in New York City.
Wait.
Why is that baby so close?
Just so we're clear. This parent clearly doesn't love her baby enough. Neither does this guy love his child enough.
They were like, wait, y'all are supposed to be farther apart. No, I gotta be in the video.
You gotta get the shot, man.
You gotta get the kid. Shot. And it was like, but she got corona, but we gotta get the shot.
Shouldn't she be living somewhere else, or that kid be living somewhere else?
Where the hell is she gonna live? I mean, we're joking about it, but where do you want her to go to? Somebody else's house to infect?
She doesn't have a family.
So if my brother is sick
and he has
because
kids.
he has kids, and you want him to come stay at our house?
If one of those. Well, no, because we get ill. I'm
That's what I'm asking. Where the fuck do you want her to go?
I know, but you have a kid that can get sick. That kid has a higher propensity of death than the adult that's in the house. If you're the mom, don't you have to take executive action if you do indeed love your kid and go live on the street or somewhere in order to spare your kid? What if that kid dies?
Can you put the video?
I'm just asking. If that kid dies, she's going to feel horrible about herself.
Maggie said the mask she has on is only 50% effective.
College-educated Americans who, like countless other Americans, will suffer as a result of this pandemic. I work full-time for a small company that does not offer health benefits. My husband is a freelancer. We currently pay over $2,000 a month for health insurance for our family of 3. My question for you is that when our savings account inevitably runs out due to him not being able to work right now, what is it that we sacrifice? Do we sacrifice food, rent, or health care?
You should not have to sacrifice anything. Let me say that again. You should not have to sacrifice anything. Not just because it's the fair thing to be taking care of your entire family and every family in your circumstance, but because it's best for the whole country, the entire economy. It's not just doing a favor for any individual. Number one, your health care, you should not have to pay a penny for testing, and it should be available to you by now. We were promised it a while ago. It should be available for you to be tested and determine what needs to be done. Number two, the House just passed an unemployment proposal that increases by $600 the unemployment insurance you'd get, whether or not you were part of, you had been covered by unemployment insurance or paid into it before, including your husband who may have been, he's a entrepreneur on his own, doesn't have employees. You will be covered. And that should be done, but that requires the federal government to help the states set up the unemployment offices in a way that they can handle this enormous call on the need for being the unemployment insurance. Thirdly, the cost of a test should be absolutely zero for you, number one. And number two, I think the House and the Senate are going to have to go back and make sure anything.
I don't think Biden's numbers are right. That's the first part. But also, it's like a wish list, right? He's like, you should. Well, that's not really what I think she's asking you.
What is the reality?
I think, right. Her point is, and this is why I have trouble with his argumentation. I mean, earlier he said something like, I don't think this should be the time where we get in a fight with Trump. No, this is the time where you get in a fight with Trump. I mean, after all, if Trump is able to walk from this, and with all of these people that have died as a result of his actions, and the public is looking at this thinking that these guys, it's a wash. Like, if they're looking at this thinking that Trump did okay at this, then you've lost the race, and you should lose it under those terms. You can't say that he has blood on his hands, and when this woman is asking you a very basic question, what should I give up? Food or, this other thing?
What should I sacrifice?
And his response is, you shouldn't have to sacrifice anything.
Okay, well, clearly I do. So, let's have a realistic conversation. Can we go to Super Chats real quick?
Yeah.
Somebody says I missed them. You guys, I would never intentionally skip a Super Chat, but there's a lot of comment that I need to get to. There's one called, somebody said Black FA or something like that. Ben Riley, thoughts on Jimmy Dore? He seems to be tripping.
Tripping about what?
Don't know. I don't think we've watched Jimmy Dore in a while.
Scroll
back up. Keep going. Black FA 508. Thank you for the Super Chat. Says, thoughts on Dore and Grimm torching their credibility?
Grimm torched his credibility with Elizabeth Warren. That's where I was at. But I've been saying that for like a year now. For the longest time. But I don't know what Dore torched his credibility in association with. I mean, he's been going after Bernie Sanders pretty hard, and so has. But I have to be honest. I understand people having some kind of feelings about Sanders backing the amendment-ish. I mean, there's a political issue associated with it. If you have every last Congress member, 96-0, turn around and vote for the bill. Let's say Sanders didn't vote for the bill, and he tried to hold the bill up for a day or two. I don't have any issue with Sanders doing that. But the problem is you have 95 others that are perfectly on board for giving this kind of corporate tax bailout. It's the best that he ended up doing is just trying to get like small provisions that may or may not have been added anyway. So it became this kind of, dog and pony show of sorts. I don't take issue with Jimmy Dore going after Sanders or something like that. If it's, you either agree with him or disagree with him. Right. Ryan Grimm, I thought Ryan Grimm burned his integrity when he was backing Elizabeth Warren. I thought that from, for like a year now. If Grimm was talking about pretty much anything else, no issue. When Grimm talks about Warren, he is talking out of his ass. Even now, he put out a tweet the other day saying, it's pretty sad for the progressive movement that Sanders and Bernie or that Sanders and Warren aren't working together. He says, regardless of whose fault you think that is, it's just really sad. And it's like, no, it's a clear person's fault. It's, like Rose reversed, Sanders would have backed her. But Rose won't reverse. You have Warren, who took a political decision in order to effectively get some kind of political concessions from the other parts of the Democratic Party. These people were never working together. Whatever she gave as a perspective that she was on board or Team Sanders was only there to grift votes and cash from suckers on the political left.
All right, I'm going back up because I think I had, that was Ben Riley's. All right, I think we're caught up with Super Chats. Can I go to a topic from...
Yeah, go for it.
Patreon. So we are at about 375, almost at 375, 365. If you are just joining us, this is Contributor Appreciation Show, where once a week we take time out to do a show based on the content that you suggest. We put a post on the Patreon platform and ask for patrons to give their topic suggestions, and we use that to fuel today's show. Trudy, thank you for the topic suggestion. I'm going to read this one out loud. So you ready? It's kind of a long one. But she says, put everything about Bernie, Joe, and Don that you know in plus and minus columns. Consider that no matter what we want, one of these dudes will be the next president. Obama promised to call on his supporters to back him and to keep him in the loop. Obama said that before he started taking big money. Bernie has promised to be the activist in chief. Will he keep that promise? Will he answer the call if he does? Having no personal experience working in D.C., I don't know, but I think it's more like House of Cards than not. That is the environment Bernie has to navigate. He fights for every crumb he can get for us and doesn't compromise until he must. Getting an extra $600 a month unemployment plus getting it without a hassle is Bernie's doing. Without us, Bernie would not have that impact. Without him, we have no one. That is from Trudy. Do you have comments on that? Oh, wait. Too Much Sauce, who says the patron link doesn't work. You need to get that together, babe. Also, please don't send anything to the P.O. box that my husband refuses to take out of the...
that was the patron link. Oh, that's what... There's a dot.
Welcome to Contributor Appreciation. He's going to fix that now and then comment on the topic suggestion. Somebody said, who is Corn Pop? You know who Corn Pop is. Google Joe Biden and Corn Pop.
Corn Pop. Yeah, Corn Pop. That's the one that Joe Biden was at the pool with and got into the
some black fight. Dude that he got into a fight with when he was
talking about a gangbanger or something. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, he's updating the link.
All right, the link is fixed.
All right, so comment on what Trudy says about Bernie Sanders.
I agree to some degree, right? I mean, look, Sanders, Trump, and Biden. And that's painful to realize, right? I mean, because basically it's most likely, if nothing changes, going to be between Biden and Trump, which to me just means Trump is going to be president of the United States for another 4 years. I would say this, though. Politics is just choosing somebody who's going to be in office, but it goes beyond that. Meaning, on a surface level, Yes, I'm going and I'm voting for somebody and I'm putting somebody in office. Or I'm working and organizing with other people to try to get somebody in that office. But your world doesn't necessarily stop like that. Meaning you don't have the end of the world on this thing. Your politics goes beyond that person being in that office. And there are things that go well beyond just whether or not you get Bob or Tom or whoever into a political position. Especially if there are things that you want in regards to policy positions in your society. Meaning if you want certain things to pass, if you want to have a certain degree of political force, or political will, if you want to have a certain degree of political accountability, then that goes beyond just you voting or not voting for any particular individual. That also goes to your tenor and the things that you say and the way that you respond in our political system. I do not believe that being walked over is the best case politically. I just don't. It's the same political disposition over the last 40, 50 years. The Democratic Party tells you you have nowhere else to go. You say you're right, and you go and vote for any random person. And then you get into moments like this, where you need a party that's competent, you need a party that can actually do the job and provide opposition. And instead, because you've had 40, 50 years of Democrats who just randomly get into a position, not because they can do a job, but because of who they weren't, now you need them to actually do the job. And you end up with the Pelosi's of the world, the Schumers of the world. A situation where the President of the United States is literally killing people, but the public, because it's been so deadened in regards to their expectations with what the Democratic Party, or for that matter, the Republican Party is offering, that they see what he's doing and say, he looks like he's doing something that's good enough. Like, that's what that gets you, though. I hope you understand what I mean. Like, not having any level of accountability in your politics, for the most part, just gets people in office just for who they aren't, not necessarily for who they are and what they're going to be in that office to do. You don't believe me? Look at all these people choosing Joe Biden. Joe Biden cannot even get a coherent statement out. And you still have people trying to put Joe Biden in the office of the presidency. Now, if you're looking at politics entirely from the position of, I'm going to vote for Biden or Trump or Sanders, fair enough. But especially if your guy is not going to make it, meaning if Sanders is not going to make it, then I have a larger question. What is in my best interest right now, politically, to support? And should that be, or is it in my best interest to support a party that has attacked me and my fellow Bernie supporters? Is it within my interest to attack a party that has attacked everything that I believe in politically in regards to the things I want to get accomplished? Is it in my best interest to deal with a Democratic Party that offers nothing, but that expects your allegiance for some reason? Am I okay with the party that cheated my guy back in 2016 and then this time lined up in unison against my guy and my interests this time around? It is not in my best interest to do that. And what I would make the point to you is that anything that you want to get accomplished politically, from the standpoint of policy, it only works against you to turn around and support somebody that offers you nothing politically. It just doesn't. You incentivize yourself being taken advantage of and stepped on. The reason why they're willing to do this to Sanders right now, why they would go after Sanders like that and attack him and all this other stuff, everybody willing to have a brokered convention, is because they know they can do it. They can walk on him. And he's not going to have any response to it other than still to support the people who walked on him. That's why. If Sanders was a different person, they wouldn't be able to pull that shit. But he's not. They can talk about Sanders' health records while he would sit there and not say anything. Joe Biden can claim that he was part of the civil rights movement because Sanders is not going to say anything. Yeah. I hope you understand what I mean. There's a difference with getting walked on. And I know, people have this kind of biblical idea that you turn the other cheek and the person won't slap the shit out of you on the other cheek, but that's not the way politics works. Politics is having a certain degree of force and political will in order to compel what you want in the political space. It is not giving you anything. And giving them your support for no reason when they have reviled and attacked and outright stepped on you and smeared you, I just see as a worst case scenario. If Trump takes it, Trump is taking it because the Democratic Party failed. It has nothing to do with me. That's the way I look at it. And, my goal in this is not to put in Joe Biden. I'm not a Democrat. My goal is to try to get what I want accomplished politically. And it is not in my best interest politically to put Joe Biden in that office. Joe Biden can barely remember his name. He can't even remember Obama's name. I am not putting somebody who's going senile in the presidency.
Too Much Sauce, thank you for the super chat, says, please look at 15 years ago, Bernie Sanders warns of pandemic.
Yes.
It's on YouTube. Excuse me. Please give it some feedback.
Yeah, I saw that. But look, this is kind of like the New York Times article on the ventilators. It's like it's not that these things aren't possible to deal with. It's not like, oh my God, we had no idea there was going to be a pandemic. There was always going to be another pandemic again. The question becomes, what does you and your society value? What do you put money into? Well, in our case, we stopped making the ventilators or stopped making a low-cost ventilator because they weren't profitable enough. Meaning the whole point in having a ventilator is to save people's lives. But the ventilator company, like I always say, it's not about the ventilators, it's about the profit. It's about the profit. The ventilator is the stupid human trick that allows them to get profit. And so in their case, they couldn't make enough profit off the ventilators, so they didn't make them. Same thing with vaccines, same thing with the medical equipment that these guys are talking about. Your society could have chose different. It just decided that that wasn't profitable enough for it. Isn't that amazing? Like when you're looking at defects in your society, and your society is like, yeah, we're going to just pass on the whole vaccines and the whole medical equipment stuff because we're not profitable enough.
Let them die because it's not making us any money. The Independent Chronicler says, Nina Turner makes my corn pop. I'm uncomfortable with that.
I like
but
me some
okay.
Nina Turner. Yeah, I like Nina.
All right, can I go to another one from Patreon? Don't forget, if you are enjoying the show and the chat, because we're almost up to 400 people. And one reason I'm missing chats is because there's so much conversation going on right now. And it's just like, it's going really quickly. Jared Watson says, oh, wait. That's an old one.
Let me show one more.
We'll never fail to respond to a crisis as a people. And I tell you what, I'm so darn proud. And those poor people who have lost, anyway.
We have... This is the guy that they've chosen. Like I know I don't mean to harp on this, but he can't talk.
We should be making those masks. We should be moving on those ventilators. We can do that. Why doesn't he just act like a president? That's a stupid way to say it.
Donald Trump was asked
Sorry.
That's so sad. Like, honestly, that's so sad.
It's painful to watch Joe Biden.
That is so sad. God damn it. And this is the guy who they're choosing.
Someone rightfully made a decision to keep him out of the public eye.
Oh, there's more, by the way.
That's the best.
I don't know if you've seen all of these. Here's another one.
Trump saying the government would reassess the recommended period for keeping businesses shut and people at home. Are you at all concerned, as Trump said, that we cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself?
We have to take care of the cure. That will make the problem worse no matter what. No.
Yep. We got to take care of the cure. That'll make the problem worse no matter what.
In response to Trudy's super chat, or in response to Trudy's topic suggestion this week, Maggie Smith. Oh my goodness.
Maggie Smith.
I'm getting Joeisms or Joe, I don't know, something. The sun's going down. Maggie Smith says, Trudy, neither will be POTUS. My intuition since 2019. Hard to predict. Probably an unknown woman. Not me, us. Still good to keep in your heart.
Yes. That I do believe is true. Not me, us is good to keep in your heart.
I do have a topic that was submitted via Patreon by a patron.
Go for it.
Regarding your show, Political Misfits. Mm-hmm. So if you guys are watching and are not aware, you must have been under a rock, but starting in February, Jamarl has a show on Radio Sputnik called Political Misfits. He and Bob Schlehuber host what's the tagline? Bring you the latest news, politics and culture without the red and blue treatment. Yeah, right. That's every weekday, Monday through Friday, 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern. And it's a new show. He was a guest for like a year on Fault Lines, off and on. Yeah. And this is new to him. And so Charmaine Foltz has a question about Political Misfits and how it's been going so far. She says she'd like to hear how you are feeling about Political Misfits. I really like having you to listen to every day, and the quality of the show is high. However, I feel the general tone and tenor of the show is more mainstream than you are.
Well, I don't know if it's mainstream. I would say this. it's not just me though. You know what I mean? Like the political misfits, it's 3 personalities that are kind of coming together in order to make the show. Our producer, Bob, and myself. Bob and I, neither of us are party-ish people. In fact, both of us tend to be antagonistic against it for different reasons.
Hence the name Political Misfit.
Right, the misfit thing. He tends to be against them because they tend to drop the ball in regards to helping people in real terms. I tend to be against them because I think that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are effectively the same party. They're just kind of running with this idea of a large psyop on the American public. There is no opinion that I've taken on the show that I wouldn't just take under normal circumstances.
I think it was Charmaine. I clicked off of it. I apologize. I think that's true. It is more mainstream. It is a radio show.
It's a radio show, right?
That has a...
Well, right. You're not going to curse. You're not gonna,
right. Well, and that too, but it's not just Jamal. And so I know that a lot of people kind of came for the progressive soapbox, where Jamal gets on his soapbox. I mean, that's literally how the channel started, was because he was upset and screaming from the mountaintops.
Right.
And that's not what Political Misfits is. It's definitely a more kind of toned down, and I would say maybe
it's
mainstream.
It's more of a toned down show.
It's the same ideals and a lot of the same content, but the delivery is different, as would be expected when you're going from one person who has limitless control over what he wants to say and do and how he wants to do it to, you know, right. Yeah. You have to factor in those other people, and not saying that he's like being monitored and stuff like that, but just when you're having a conversation. I mean, look at the conversation. Look at this show.
Basically,
this show is different because
it's my show.
Well, no, I'm talking about the show when I'm here. Oh. It's a different delivery, because of that. You have to consider the other person.
The show is effectively the same. Any opinion that I give on Political Misfits is an opinion I give here. I mean, I don't think there's any deviation. In fact, no, I know there's no deviation. The only difference has to do with any piece that I do. Meaning, if I'm doing a segment, I most likely wrote the segment. Every so often, Michelle writes some of the other ones. But any piece that I care about, it's something that I'm doing and I'm saying. The only difference is you have 3 people as opposed to just one. Meaning, if I do something, I would have my own kind of... it's my show. I do whatever I want on it. If I'm doing a piece, I'm doing the piece any particular way that I want. But all things being equal, it's 3 of us who are kind of putting our heads together to make a show. Mm-hmm. So beyond that, there's no difference.
But thank you for watching, and if you haven't, check it out.
It's damn good.
It is streamed here, even though it is a radio show through Sputnik. It is streamed here every weekday live.
Yeah. Monday through Friday, 12 to 2
Eastern. All right, I got a couple super chats.
Go for it.
Before we move on to the next one. Frank Friel says, Joe Biden makes George W. sound like Gore Vidal.
He does.
Am I pronouncing that right? Gore Vidal.
Gore Vidal, yeah.
We heard... I got one more. Maggie Smith says, Joe is ventriloquist dummy. Mr. Global Ventriloquist. Have you ever seen when people go on talent shows and they do the ventriloquist act?
They throw the...
And they have the dummy and they throw their voice. Whoever is behind Joe Biden failed. Because even if he is the ventriloquist dummy, he is not...
He's not doing well with that.
All right, 2 more super chats, and then we're going to go to whatever that is that you're pulling up now. Owen Johnson says, Joe Biden makes me sick. Me too, Owen. Every time it comes... I'm not as against him as I was with Elizabeth Warren. It got to a point where every time Elizabeth came on, it would just make me cringe. And I was like, for fuck's sake, if I got to watch one more video of Beth up here, I can't take it. I'm almost there with Joe, but I have a little sympathy for him because I think he really is having some cognitive decline.
Fuck that.
And
to do with that.
I feel bad. It's hard to watch Joe.
To do with that
so it's not as much. He's not as putrid to me as Warren is because I don't think he's even understanding what he's saying at the time. Constitution Journal. Thank you for the super chat. It says, I love both of you. Jamal, you are really becoming such a powerful voice for the progressive movement. I really appreciate what you do. Intelligent and insightful. I enjoy the day-to-day topics.
Very cool. Thank you.
Just showing love. That's what JSL means. Oh, wait, real quick, because this is funny, because she put JSL, and right when I was like, what is JSL? What
Justice
is JSL?
League of Spain.
Justice League?
Yeah.
She put in the comments JSL. This reminds me of when my dad didn't know what LOL meant. and he thought it meant lots of love.
Yeah.
And my sister-in-law's brother passed away, and we were like in this group text, and he kept sending messages with LOL, like, you know, I'm sorry to hear about your brother, LOL. And everybody's like, what the fuck? Like, and my brother had to ask him, Dad, do you know LOL? And he was like, yeah, lots of love. And it's like, nah, bruh.
It's like, what the fuck
It's
is that?
not. Okay. Sorry, I just had to put that little tidbit in there. Go ahead.
All right, so right now, Bernie Sanders is saying he is looking forward to the next debate. So he's saying
It's not going to be another debate, dude.
He's looking forward to the next debate. And if there's going to be one next month, he will be at that debate. Now, Joe Biden only has 19. Well, that's the catch. And so when Joe Biden was asked about that, Joe Biden came out and said the following. He's like, yeah, let's wrap this shit up. I'm done.
Secondly, Bernie Sanders' campaign has said that he would debate if there was a debate in April. Do you think there should be another debate in April, and would you participate?
My focus is just dealing with this crisis right now. I haven't thought about any more debates. I think we've had enough debates.
Dealing with it how?
Secondly, Bernie Sanders' campaign has said that he would debate if there was a debate in April. Do you think there should be another debate in April, and would you participate?
My focus is just dealing with this crisis right now. I haven't thought about any more debates. I think we've had enough debates.
You haven't thought about anything, I don't think.
Secondly,
basically, no. Basically, no. I'm not looking.
The virus is here. We can't do debate.
I've stood up for the last 2 hours. I'm just going to call it a day.
You're not
I'm gonna worry about it
standing.
no more. I mean, he's trying to call it a day. Now, Joe Biden has a problem. Now, I've said this, Bernie supporters have said this for a very, very long time, but now the polling is beginning to catch up with what we have been saying. How do you believe a man that can barely get his name out is going to somehow run in a race against Donald Trump and win? Which is the catch. How? You've seen those videos of Biden. You've seen all those debates where he just got crushed. How is this man going to win?
You make me watch.
Now, a few points. ABC News did some polling, and their polling basically says Biden has consolidated support, but trails badly in enthusiasm. Now, enthusiasm is important. That's the thing that gets people out of bed.
Right.
That's the thing that
literally
makes
me
people
go out
excited.
here and brave the coronavirus and give your ass my vote.
Exactly. Now, when you look at the vote tally and you look at enthusiasm, Donald Trump, 53%, very enthusiastic. They're happy. They're excited. They're out there. They're ready to stump for their guy. 32% somewhat enthusiastic. 14% not at all enthusiastic. But 53% strong enthusiasm. Joe Biden, very enthusiastic, 24%. Half. Less than half. Somewhat. He makes a little bit up in the somewhat enthusiastic, 49%. And then not at all, 26%. But look at this. 53%. It's not even close. It's not even close. And so you look at that and you're like, well, whoa, are people going to stump and get out of bed and do all that stuff for Joe Biden like that?
No.
And then you add in another factor. 15% of Bernie voters would vote for Trump. Meaning, of these people who are voting for Joe Biden, 15% of them would go to Donald Trump as opposed to vote for Joe Biden. So you have flat enthusiasm. You have a large contingent that would just say, fuck it. Not even to stay out of the election, but to literally go and vote for the opponent.
Trump. Yeah, that's hardcore.
I am curious on the number of people who just wouldn't vote for Joe Biden. I wouldn't vote for Joe Biden. I wouldn't vote for Trump either. And so you get into the numbers on this and people are like, whoa, that's a problem. Yes, that's a problem. But we told you that was a problem early on. You have the youth demographic. The youth demographic is the most flakiest of the demographics for voting. And in fact, they kept saying what Sanders is doing is risky because he's depending on the youth vote. Fair enough. How are you going to get elected without that vote? He's getting 80% of that vote total. And you think those people are going to go for Joe Biden? Joe Biden has been attacking Medicare for All. He's been attacking free college. He's been attacking the expansions of Social Security and whatnot. I mean, for fuck's sake, most of his career he was trying to cut Social Security. I guess I'm making the basic point that everything that they pushed for, Biden and the entirety of the party literally lined up against. And you expect those people who you call bros, who you call racist, who you call sexist, you expect those people to turn around and vote for your guy. Shouldn't you have thought about that before you start calling them bros and sexist and racist? That's my thought. When you get into this question in regard to the race, look at this. Let's go into some of the numbers. The numbers should scare the shit out of any Democrat that hopes Trump doesn't get a second term. And by the way, when I argue that if Bernie Sanders really wanted Joe Biden to get in office over Trump, then Bernie Sanders should have been a stronger political figure. The reason I say that is you can't browbeat people to vote for Biden. Meaning, I can't come here and say, hey, you need to vote for Joe Biden because Trump is horrible. That's not going to bother me at all. If Bernie Sanders came to my house and he knocked on the door and says, hey, I need you to vote for Joe Biden, I would shut the door on Bernie Sanders. I would probably tell him to get off my lawn, and I might even call the cops. That's where I would be. To put it in perspective, all of those people who are booing Sanders, that's where I am on that front. You shouldn't be telling people to vote for Joe Biden. Now, what you could do, though,
doing that again.
You could peel people off like me, meaning you could peel people away from people with my disposition of, yeah, Joe Biden would never get my vote, by getting the Democratic Party and the Biden camp to give actual concessions. Meaning, if you could come to people and say, look, I know this isn't the guy that you want, but I've guaranteed expansion of Social Security, and I've guaranteed paying off school loans. Those are my guarantees. So if nothing else, you're not getting everything that you want, but you get these. You're going to have a segment of people of that 15% that will peel away. Because at the very least, you can make an argument that you got something out of this. Just telling people to vote for Biden doesn't do it. That's kind of what I mean when I say, even if your point was you want Biden to get in office, and your name is Sanders, being weak is not the way to do it. It doesn't help your cause. And this polling kind of gets across why. So, let's see. In the nomination contest, 51% of lean Democrats now prefer Biden over 42% for Sanders. That's a 34-point gain for Sanders, meaning Joe Biden has been able to consolidate. Essentially, he's our guy in the Democratic Party. Perhaps the Democrats' biggest risk is under the surface, in Trump's big advantage in backers who are very enthusiastic about supporting him. Strong enthusiasm for the candidate can help boost turnout by Election Day, a must-have, particularly for Democrats, which rely more on motivating less frequent voters to come to the polls. Many of the younger people are Democrats. Those people don't show up. So right here, this is deja vu results. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton found herself in largely the same position 4 years ago. She, too, had a slim lead among Democrats for the nomination and ran essentially evenly with Trump among the registered voters, and she lagged in enthusiasm with a low 32%. Very enthusiastic in September 2016. Biden is 8 points under Hillary Clinton's mark right now. Deja vu. Bad as Biden's enthusiasm is, we've seen worse. A few of the scores, 17% for John McCain. Let's see. Mitt Romney had 23% in 2012. This is a poor omen for Biden because Clinton, McCain, and Romney all lost. They all lost. Here's another one. As noted, Trump is aided in the poll produced by the ABC Lager Research Associate by his ratings on the economy. Despite the deep economic impacts of the coronavirus, 57% of Americans approve of Trump's handling of the economy. A new high in ABC News poll. He is still getting high marks on the economy. And Trump leads Biden in trusts to handle the economy with 50 to 42%. 48% also approve of Trump's handling of the job generally, another career high. Trump and Biden are even in trusts to handle the coronavirus outbreak, 45 to 53 to 43%. Biden comes back to lead a 13-point in trust to handle healthcare, 57 to 40 to 30. I'm sorry, 52 to 39. Think about that, though. Trump is, even now, with the economy falling apart, Trump is still considered, they're giving him a pass on the economy. And they're even giving him not just a pass on his handling of the coronavirus, they're basically saying, well, we think Biden will do just as good.
Not so much.
I guess I'm making the point that you as a Democratic Party can't make the basic argument that Trump is getting people killed based on his policies. How can't you make that argument? Like, it's literally true. I mean, you can point to it in the numbers. How can't you make that argument? How do you end up in a situation with the Democratic Party, with Trump literally taking policy that is killing people, and the Democratic Party is breaking even with that person in regards to the way they're handling the virus? That's astonishing to me. Like, how do you lose a political war over this? I don't get it. But the losing of that political war is why the polling is what the polling is. Let's see. And, this is, again, compared to Trump, who is pulling in like 80-something% support in regards to people who are very enthusiastic. The catch becomes, what does this look like when you're trying to win a race? And you need people to get out there and to vote for you. Not just will you vote for Joe Biden, but will you actually push for him? Will you be excited about him? Will you go out there and knock on doors for him?
No.
Or is it just you're terrified of Trump, so you're going to go for Joe Biden? I will tell you this. That didn't work in 2016, where their entire platform was Trump is going to eat babies and kick puppies. That didn't work in 2016. And the collapsing of the economy doesn't seem to be blamed on Trump, nor does his handling of the coronavirus seem to be blamed on Trump. None of this is being blamed on Trump. And so from the standpoint of the public looking at the Democratic Party, and they ask, who would you prefer to handle the virus? And they point to Trump. You fucked up royally. What have you been doing? Well, this reality show host is getting as high marks, if not higher marks, than you and your handling of this issue. I'm just blown away by that. But that foretells of problems. Let me get to some super chats before we go to the next one. Nunya Beeswax says, in regards to the last conversation that we were having about your show, Political Misfits, the only difference between Progressive Soapbox and Political Misfits is that a 10-minute segment actually is a 10-minute segment. There's that. Ooh. There's that. That's all it is. But it's a different... I like that because if you guys don't know, I'm a little bit stricter. Jamal doesn't have good time management skills. And I like that. It is a little bit more concise. Anyway, Marcus Will says, what would be different in a new debate from Bernie Sanders' end? And I got one more on this topic. Like if we haven't had, if we have another debate in April, what changes? Right. That's the question, right? I mean, look, personally. What if he came out, new debate, Biden and Bernie comes out fucking swinging. I mean, like, out the gate, just punching Joe Biden. I'm just saying, what if? No, I don't think he's going to do that. What Bernie Sanders should have did in that last... No, not shoulda. We're not living in the past. What did that dude Mondale say on your show the other day that I thought was some BS? I don't talk about the past, or I don't look at the past or something. We're not living in the past. We're talking about the future. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to see the future. We only have the ability to look at the past and see the results of it. We can pontificate. Or we can prognosticate. If Sanders came into this debate and he... swinging. But you don't want to be belligerent where people think... No, not belligerent, but like he's juiced up, like before the debate started, and he's come out and he's like, he's ready to go. The problem is, look, politics is not like a fight where it stops after the fight. Meaning it's not like, you have a round and then you guys leave and then you come back and the things that you did in the previous round don't show up. They do. It's like, if you think of the entirety of the context of a fight, everything that you've done up to this point matters. Meaning, if I come at Biden and I say, you betrayed the black community, and Biden says, what are you talking about? 2 months ago, you said that wasn't true. You said that wasn't true. Well, what about if he does? No, I'm making the point that if he comes out swinging, how can you repudiate what you've done in the previous year? So if he comes out swinging now, then it's going to be compared to when he was inoculating Biden before. It depends on the topic. If you say that Joe Biden is corrupt, well, are you going to say that when you repudiated Zephyr's teacher? Like, there are certain things that would be considered rough politics that you should have did in general. I suppose you can come out and you could try to tie Joe Biden to the corporate class, or you could say, this is, or, and he's not even going to do this, but you come out and say, look at the difference between the way I'm handling this and the way Joe Biden handled this. Which one do you want to be a champion? And you can show the videos. You can show all of these videos where he's losing his mind, where he doesn't seem to be able to articulate his point. Now, I would say that's fair game. And that should be to try to show this point of, is this the guy who you really want to go up against Trump? Is that the guy who you really want to be out there to make your case, who can't even get words out? But again, that's something you should have been doing from the beginning. I know, but he hasn't. I guess what I'm saying is, what would Progressive's reaction be? Lefties would if he came out? Okay, but the issue is never lefties. The issue is always Sanders. And you know what? This gets to the whole, the black voter stuff, right? I mean, like there's a clip on the Rising when they're talking to a guy about black voters. And he's saying, like, black voters have been really cynical in regards to what they think they'll get from the U.S. government. So even though they hear Sanders, they listen to him like he's Marianne Williamson, like, oh, this will never pass. White folks will never allow this. Now, this is partial to who keeps the monsters at bay, but it's also who can we sell to the white population in order to win. And I think that's fair game. I mean, I've heard family members say something similar. But let's be clear. That's not their fault. Like, you can't blame black voters for not voting for Sanders. As much as it bugs the shit out of me, as much as it aggravates me, you would never hear me voter shame on this stuff. I look at this stuff and think, as a candidate, you have to go to the people where they are. I've always thought that. I thought that if it was Clinton, I thought that if it was Obama, and yeah, I think that if it's Sanders, or for this matter, if the person's name is Joe Biden, you got to go to voters where they are. Meaning, you need to get black voters. You've been able to get Asians, Hispanics, and the other demographics. Why not this segment of the population? And it's like, all right, well, we need them to buy on to my argument that we can do these things. And you have a segment that says, but we don't buy on to that argument. Now, is it that they don't buy the argument if they don't believe the argument? Or is it there's this feeling towards Joe Biden because Joe Biden was there with Obama? Is it we think that Joe Biden is a person that we can sell to the American public? Meaning, you need to some degree figure out why they don't buy into it, but the other demographics do. And the moment you figure that out and you ask yourself, is it possible for me to make an affirmative argument to get these people on my side? Meaning, can I say something to you to convince you that I'm the better person? Just in a conversation. And we're staying with the angels of my nature. Meaning, I'm going to give you this great rhetoric. We're going to do Medicare for all. We're going to do expansion of Social Security. We're going to do all of this stuff. And at the end of that, I go to you and I'm like, all right, are you going to buy on? And you say, I don't know if the public will buy that, so I'm going to go for Joe Biden. If that's true, then it's your job as a candidate to come up with a different tact.
We're so far
to get that. Now, what I mean by different tact to get that, when you get the opportunity to have a conversation and one of your surrogates comes up and that surrogate makes the point that Joe Biden has not always been friends to black folks and Joe Biden has betrayed the black community. And you, as the candidate, get to be on the debate stage with millions of people looking at you and with the reporter, a black woman, who put a knife in Joe Biden once before on the issue of civil rights. And she asks you the following. You better answer this. And I say this in the same way that I said Joe Biden should have answered that question. Yes, Donald Trump has blood on his hands. It may be provocative, but at the same token, you're going to get eyes on that and you're going to get people talking about it. Right here, you have an issue with getting elderly black people to vote for you. You have one guy who's running out there screaming that he was part of the civil rights movement and wasn't. You yourself marched literally with goddamn Martin Luther King and you wouldn't open your goddamn mouth about it. And right now, national television, you have the opportunity. What does he say?
Sanders, several weeks ago, Nina Turner, one of your national co-chairs, published an op-ed piece that said Vice President Biden has, quote, repeatedly betrayed black voters to side with Republican lawmakers and undermine our progress. Senator Sanders, do you agree with her? One of your most visible surrogates that Vice President Biden has repeatedly betrayed black voters?
Well, I think what Senator Turner was talking about are some of the early actions of Vice President Biden. But no, Joe Biden is a friend of mine, and I'm not here to attack him. But what I would say is that what we need in terms of the African-American community is to understand that we have got to start investing big time in education, in healthcare. There is no excuse why white families in America have 10 times more wealth than black families. No excuse that disproportionately African Americans are in jail compared to whites. No excuse for black women dying in childbirth 3 times the rate that white women are doing as well.
This affirmative argument didn't work. It didn't work the first month. It didn't work the second month. It didn't work the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth,
Here we are.
It didn't work any of those months. This affirmative argument did not work. The person who was on your staff, an African American, says Joe Biden betrayed the black community. And your response as a white man was, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. Early on. But later on, he was okay. He's okay. Maybe you should listen to the black person.
Attack him. He's my friend.
Maybe you should listen to the black person that's on your staff that has some understanding of A, what it means to be black, what motivates African Americans either to vote for a particular candidate or not vote for a candidate, and maybe you should take her lead, especially if what she's saying is legitimate and true. Fact of the matter is, when she asked that, you should not put a knife in Nina Turner. You should take Nina Turner's lead, and you should go out and you make the point that, yes, Joe Biden, who made this argument about being part of the civil rights movement, himself said that he was never part of the civil rights movement, and yet he goes all around saying this. And then make that pitch, meaning the secondary pitch of we need to have African Americans be able to do this, 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 and that. Then make that pitch. You can still make that pitch. It was only, 10 seconds? But you definitely don't say no to that, because later on, you may need to actually go back to that attack. And you don't necessarily want to inoculate Joe Biden for something now that will come up later. And I got to be honest, as somebody who's an African American, it bugs the shit out of me that Joe Biden is able to skate on this notion of him being part of the civil rights movement, whereas you don't. Meaning you can't bring that up. And then whether Sanders realizes it or not, that clip where Nina Turner is on a debate on CNN with, I can't think of the other woman, but it was a woman that was a surrogate for Joe Biden. And Nina Turner brings up Martin Luther King, and that woman says, you don't have standing to bring up Martin Luther King. Now, keep in mind, this is Joe Biden's surrogate who is lying about the civil rights movement, who was working against the civil rights movement in many respects, especially in the context of busing, versus Sanders, who was literally walking with Dr. Martin Luther King, and if you're asking whose policies and everything else more in line up with it, it would be Sanders. And yet, because Sanders has never brought up and made the issue of civil rights, never brought up that Joe Biden has been lying about civil rights, allowed Joe Biden to run around the country as if he was the black choice, because you've never done that, she can get on television and tell Turner, you don't have the standing to bring up Dr. Martin Luther King. This is consequences. Like, this weakness doesn't just exist in a sandbox. That weakness shows up over and over and over again when you inoculate your opponent for something that he should not be inoculated for. She gave you the opportunity to put a knife in Joe Biden and carve out that black vote, and give him an opportunity like this. You didn't take it. That's why I keep saying, look, don't blame African Americans for something that boiled down to something that the candidate did.
Okay. Can I comment on this?
Go for it.
Okay, Fred Eggs. Also, Fred, don't at Jamal. He's not looking at the chat. At me. Fred posted here in Patreon. He says the issue is, it's in regards to this topic, so I wanted to bring this in. But he says the issue is not about blacks supporting Bernie, but about the closing of polling centers throughout the U.S. On average, people were waiting hours to vote. Texas closed more than 700 locations. Yeah. Reuters reported over 1,200 locations closed since 2013. The only state that has actually added locations is South Carolina. Look at the exit polls in 2016. My point is that to blame blacks for Bernie losing is disregarding the possibility that Bernie may not have actually been losing, or that the results could be challenged in the courts due to disenfranchised voters due to closed polling locations.
Yeah, but they're never going to do that. I mean, like, the Democratic Party knew that those polling locations was being closed. They knew the Voting Rights Act had been ripped apart or ripped to shreds. They knew the Republican Party were using the voter ID laws as just a way of carving off a certain percentage of the vote totals. They never did shit about it.
Yeah.
Like, they let that ride. As for challenging in court, I don't see them doing it.
Not gonna happen.
But Sanders was losing the black vote. I mean, I don't think that's even in contention at this point. I mean, if you're talking about, split the black vote for a moment. You have the younger demographic that went to Sanders. You have the older demographic that went to Biden. The older demographic just so happened to be more voluminous. I mean, they showed up at the polls and everything else in much higher numbers. So it's not entirely true to say the black vote, but if you're talking about the older African Americans, yeah, they did show up more for Joe Biden, especially when you get into the issues of the South. But this is kind of my point. You weren't going to be able to make the affirmative argument in order to win those people over. And if you're running a campaign, if your name is Sanders, and you say, the only campaign I'm going to run is a positive campaign, meaning I can't go into the dark areas in order to either contest, to call my opponent a liar, or to put a knife in my opponent, even if that means winning. So the only way I can run this contest is in this very specific way. That's fucking lunacy.
Yeah, no flexibility.
Yeah, there's no flexibility. I mean, and especially when you're presented with a problem that is impossible to solve in the way that you're trying to solve it. It's like I have this thing of scissors, and I need to use it as a monkey wrench. It's like, it doesn't work that way. Ultimately, people are not going to sign on to you for an affirmative argument if they don't believe that affirmative argument will come to pass, or if they don't believe the rest of the country will buy in. Meaning, because you can't make the argument that this guy is lying about civil rights, or this guy is not great for civil rights, or the African American community is better with me, or I march, because you can't make those arguments. I'm sorry, you don't make those arguments. There's a difference. You've allowed Biden to take a position that he doesn't necessarily occupy. And in doing so, disenfranchising people like me and all of these younger blacks who, for the most part, was screaming at the top of their head that Joe Biden was full of shit. I mean, honestly, most African Americans don't know that Joe Biden was lying about the civil rights stuff. But
somebody needs to tell them.
I know, but who's going to tell them if not the candidate? This is kind of my point. That's
a lot of people, unfortunately, are not going to go out and seek the education themselves.
But that's my
They're
point.
going to sit in front of a TV, and whatever is given to them, that's what they're going to receive. And no one is giving them that information.
You can't blame blacks for something that the candidate is responsible for.
All right, Marcus Will, thank you for the super chat. I'm going back to get caught up on super chat. Some of them are kind of funny. Marcus Will says, maybe the DNC will rig the elections in favor of Bernie Sanders. Doubtful.
Extremely doubtful.
I got another super chat. Broke college graduate, this was funny, well, not funny, but thank you. Broke college graduate, thank you for the super chat, says you have a beautiful, intelligent, supportive wife. No disrespect to your beliefs or lack of, but I have to say God bless you. I love watching y'all. Thank you, broke college graduate. And to co-sign on that, Philip Zimmerman says, I second. Aisha is a hot anime nerd. Lucky Jamal. I was watching, and after our conversation the other day on Political Misfits, that's all I've been binge watching for the last 2 days. So you guys kind of put me back into that anime mode. Dilly Y'all 357 says Mondale pissed me off. You can always go back. So we've talked a couple times today about political You don't even know what I'm going to say.
I know, but he's not going to be on the show anymore.
No, I'm not. I know. Hell no, I'm not. Yeah, okay. No.
After that one, I was like,
what I was going to say was, we've talked a little bit today about Political Misfits, so by now you should know 12 to 2 every weekday, Jamal and Bob host a show called Political Misfits. It is aired here. Even if you don't get the notifications, tune in. It's going to be every weekday. They are still giving the content, hunkered down, Skyping in and making it happen. So shout out to them for that and the coordination that goes on and starts several hours before the show. But what I was going to say was, Dilly Y'all says Mondale pissed me off. That is a comment in regards to a guest that they had 2 weeks ago, a couple times. On Friday, there is a segment called Come At Me, Bro. And that is a chance where like they discuss and debate controversial topics. And so this cat came on, and the consensus in the chat was he wasn't exactly a favorite. And he said some things that most people in this progressive circle didn't necessarily agree with. You can always go back and look at those shows. They are here on Jamal's channel. So if you're interested, it was a Friday segment, and usually in the last 30 to 60 minutes is the segment. That one went a little long, but that was intense, and
that was a train wreck.
I didn't enjoy that at all. But check that out if we're referring to something regarding Political Misfits that you have not seen. It is a 2-hour long show, but stick it out. It's good.
It's a good show.
Cat Purple, thank you for the super chat, says judge Bernie not by what he says, but by what he does. He is a pacifist and hasn't thrown a punch. The establishment will not give it up with hugs. No, they won't.
They won't.
And no, he won't.
Did he think that though? Did he think that?
It's like how much was really everybody else is swinging. I mean, like, you're in the middle of a fight where everybody else is swinging and you're bent down in a corner. It was like, I will not hit another man. Yeah. And it's like, God damn it. That's what we're here to do on a debate. I mean,
because he's like, I'm not here to attack Joe. No, you actually are. You actually are.
That is
because if you tell me the billionaire class is doing this and this is an accidental threat and we got to do something about the climate change. I mean, if you do that, if you tell me that 500,000 people are losing, going bankrupt because they don't have health care, and all of this country is saddled with debt, and 80% of the people have to work paycheck to paycheck, and fair enough. You have me at hello. I'm there with you. We got people living on the street. We got people who can't pay for the coronavirus vaccine. Fair enough. However, I can't throw a punch against Joe Biden. What? You're telling me all of this existential shit? And
you know what? I'm gonna say this. I have not watched. You came to me yesterday and was like, have you seen anything in the news? Have you seen it? I gotta be honest, I'm not watching shit anymore because I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm checked the fuck out. I gotta be honest. Like, I went hard for Bernie. They did him wrong. He was my dude. I was Bernie or bust. And then I feel like what I needed him to do, he was not willing to do. And we were doing it for you. Burn. Dude, listen. We were doing it. Progressives were doing it. These Bernie bros were out here ready to punch people in the face. My mother-in-law is telling her friends and family about Bernie Sanders, and she was not having these conversations before. I actually volunteered for a campaign. I mean, what the fuck, man? Like, we were doing it. And then it was like, we needed you to fight. Like, when he announced that he was running in 2020, that initial speech where he came out and it was like, fucking yes! I was hyped. Yeah. I was excited. And it was like, here we go. Here we go. They got us in 2016. We're ready. We came out swinging. And Bernie was like, you know.
I felt like he understood. I mean, my thought was he has to understand that everybody in that party is going to be against him. And you have to run as if that's true. Whether it's true or not. Meaning, whether it's Warren, whether it's Biden, whether it's anybody else on that stage, you should assume that they're trying to flood the gates. Meaning, they're trying to create a situation that forces a brokered convention or, for that matter, just line up to stop you. Wait. He should have known that.
Listen. No disrespect to you, but you are not in politics. You do this show, and you are very well informed. And your prognostications are... Wait. Let me finish what I'm saying is, you knew what he needed to do.
Well, Sanders did too.
I know. I guess that's what I'm saying. It was like, so then what the fuck, man?
But look, just because he knows what he needs to do, he still has ideological blinders. I mean... Like this is,
I guess I'm saying is we were here having these conversations
it's like, I give you a perfect
in the little
example.
corner of the progressive soapbox, and
I give you a perfect example. If somebody says,
so they were having the conversations with him and he was ignoring them.
If you were talking to somebody and somebody was like, yeah, I like to, my wife and I have an open marriage. I think an open marriage is fine. Your first thought was like, oh fuck, man, that has certain problems associated with it. I mean, what if this happens? What if that happened? Your perspective on it is entirely different. You take an ideological stance immediately just from the behavior and the life that you've lived of like, well, yeah, fuck that. The other person looks at that and says, I don't see the issue here. It's fair game. What's your issue against it? Well, any issue that you bring up against it is not real. It's just cultural. Well, in his case, he has this kind of ideological guardrails where you're like, Sanders, you got to throw a punch. And he's like, that's okay. His entire team kept telling him to do. You had Sirota, Zephyr Teachout, Nina Turner, all of them pushing Sanders. You got to throw a punch. You got to throw a punch. You got to throw a punch. Sirota got to the point after South Carolina of sending this email out saying, if you don't do this, you would lose. So it wasn't like they didn't know. He just wouldn't do it. Him and Jane just didn't. It was like, Joe Biden's my buddy. Joe Biden was a friend of mine before I became anybody. And so I don't necessarily want to ruffle the waters. And you try to point out like, but you've been bitching about the billionaire class. Who the fuck do you think is their avatar? To put it in perspective, what's his name got into the race? Oligarch. Oh God, what is his name? Bloomberg got into the race. Bloomberg stayed into the race only up until the point where it was clear that Joe Biden was most likely going to win it, at which point he got out the race. Why? Because
I came to do what I did what I came to do.
That's why I was here. That's my issue. My issue was that Sanders was going to potentially win it. I don't care if Trump wins it. I don't care if Biden wins it. I just need him not to win it. That's the guy. That's my problem. Sanders, all of these years ago, I guess my point is, don't blame other groups for malfeasance of the candidate. I mean, this was a political liability. I mean, you could call it political malfeasance. You could say it was political misjudgment. You could say he didn't mean it. I mean, like, there's all sorts of things you could say associated with it. Because to me, if something digs in you, right? I mean, don't you respond in kind? Meaning that even if Joe Biden is your friend, this is really nothing to do with your friendship. This is about 500,000 people going bankrupt a year.
It's just, I sat and I would watch the videos where I used to be a G. Like, I used to be, like, real tough and stuff like that. But for some reason, like, in the last couple of years, like, I get emotional. And there was some speech that he did, and, like, they had, like, the slow music in the background, and they built it up, and it was dramatic. And I was like, fuck, man. Bernie gonna change my life. Like, he gonna change the world. And it was, like, this passion that kind of burned in you. And then he came out, and it was like...
But then you found out he was weak. And the weakness...
broke my heart.
Unfortunately.
It broke my heart.
It's like,
Oh, I got a super chat.
Yeah, the weakness is problematic. It's like, and I get annoyed with people when they're like, oh, they shanked them or whatever. You can't really get mad at them for doing that because you knew they were going to do that. Like, don't get me wrong. No, they shouldn't do that. Yes, I want a fair contest. And yes, I want the person to run. But I also fully believe that you maximize your potential for something, especially if you know you're going to come up against significant opposition. But don't complain to me about being cheated if you can't even muster up to throw a punch against your candidate or say that the guy who claimed to be a part of the civil rights movement is lying. You know what I mean? Like, you have to do everything that's in your power, even if the context is rigged. And Sanders, whatever you want to think of him, could not do that. And that's fucking infuriating to me.
Perhaps Mr. Duncan was right in suggesting that we may be overreacting, but I believe that the American people want us to be safe rather than sorry. I think they will forgive us if we end up doing things and spending money that in the long run may turn out not to be necessary if, in fact, we are going forward vigorously to prevent what could be a horrible, horrible situation. I think we all remember or read that in 1918, some 50 million people in this world died from an influenza epidemic, and I think it is beholden upon our country and governments throughout the world to do everything that we can in every way to protect the American people and people throughout the world. I think Mr. Kucinich a moment ago raised some very important issues. And the issue is that our job as the government of the United States of America is not to worry at this moment about the corporate profits of the Roche Company or any other drug company, but to make certain that we are doing all that we can to prepare for what could be a terrible pandemic. I hope that in that context, we can all agree that now is not the time to be tiptoeing around intellectual property rights.
This is old.
Yeah, this is old. This came out 15 years ago.
Oh, this is the one that somebody mentioned. Is it Too Much Sauce or somebody mentioned about a video?
15 years ago, he's arguing, look, we need to be prepared for the pandemic that's coming up. And I don't think it's hyperbolic to do so. 15 years later.
We didn't.
15 years later.
Salu, thank you for the super chat, says, let's move on from being angry at Bernie and start talking about solidarity for folks to not pay coronavirus medical bills. Move on to something we can do something about. Well, we can have a conversation about both, I would like to say. I would like to think we can have a conversation about both.
Yeah, I would like to have both. I mean, but look, both are true, right? It's not
solidarity for folks to not pay coronavirus medical bills. We did touch on that a little bit when Joe Biden was on here talking about you shouldn't have to sacrifice.
It's like, no shit, Sherlock. I mean, that's not saying anything.
And we're going to get...
My feelings of Sanders are complicated. It's both. It's this kind of recognition that Sanders has bought the left so far in a very short period of time, almost single-handedly. I mean, yes, you've had various movements and everything else, but that stuff didn't catch on until you had this kind of lightning rod effect of Sanders dragging this stuff into the limelight. Also, it's this thing, I think for me, though, it's this kind of recognition of that, with this also recognition of you had chances. It's that. That's
poor choices, man.
Yeah, it's
missed opportunities.
It's the missed opportunity thing more than anything else.
That's how it happens.
Yeah.
Dare me to do it. You know, this is.
I love that name.
I don't want to read this super chat because I don't agree with this. He says, you two are awesome. I agree with that. He says, Bob is cool, but Aisha is better.
Oh, that's funny.
That's nice.
That's nice.
But
just
shout out to Bob.
It's just preference.
Megan Morales says, Matt Stoller
yeah.
called Bernie a coward.
Yeah.
And that people in Congress are scared of Warren and snicker at Sanders. Thoughts? DSA is already planning beyond Bernie.
I think Matt Stoller, for whatever reason, had his feelings hurt, and he was pissed off at that budget bill. I think it was on Dore. His thing of Sanders being a coward. Now, the reason he was saying that, because he was like, all of these people fell in line to back this bill that was effectively just a corporate giveaway. And the fight and everything else that was being had in that process, well, that wasn't necessarily a real fight. I mean, basically, they're fighting for these kind of incremental things when ultimately you're talking about like $4.5 trillion that is being thrown at these various companies or whatnot, when really the issue boils down to workers and those people, and that's where the fight should have been had. As for this notion about Joe Biden and everything else, part of that also came up to, Joe Biden is going to get crushed in that race. And if you know that, you should say that. Or if you know that Joe Biden is not altogether there mentally, then you shouldn't pretend that he is. That's where Stoller was coming from. Stoller's thing was, this is the lunatic that you have that's up there running because Sanders didn't have what it takes to do it. But all of it was being put in the context of that bill.
I have a super chat.
Go for it.
As soon as I find it, because I'm scrolling too much trying to follow this conversation. Sports droppings. God dang it. I knew that was going to happen. Sports droppings. Thank you for the super chat. Sports droppings says, the phrase you're looking for, Jamal, isn't ideological guardrails. It's temperamental guardrails. Bernie is staunch in his ideas, but lacks fight.
Temperamental ideas.
Temperamental guardrails.
But that is ideological, right? I mean, the willingness to go in on somebody versus feeling like, oh, this is my buddy, so I don't want to do that. Like, he wouldn't have any issue like that with Bloomberg, even though he still would be, I don't know. I just think, if Bloomberg, say, for example, the same people that are paying Joe Biden are the same people that's giving money to Trump. They're just, similar objectives in regards to making sure that they get more and more influence and more control. Whether you're talking about Bloomberg or whether you're talking about one of those oligarchs, what's the difference? They're being paid by the exact same person. If Sanders has great issue with Bloomberg being in the race, he should have just as much angst and animosity towards Joe Biden because they are representing literally the same people. That's my point. It doesn't matter if Joe Biden is your buddy. Joe Biden is just the avatar of a lot of other people who are not supposedly your buddies. This is Tara Reid. This is the woman who is accusing Joe Biden of rape.
We were alone. He just had me up against the wall. His hands were on me and underneath my clothes. Yeah, and then penetrated me with his fingers, whatever. I couldn't believe it was happening. It seemed surreal. I just felt sick because when he pulled back, he looked annoyed. Like, he smiles when he's angry, and you can just feel it emanating from him. And my body, I was shaking everywhere because I was trying to grasp what had just happened. And yeah, there was something he said that I didn't want to say. It's the thing that stays in my head over and over, like kind of stayed with me over the years. He just pointed at me and he said, "You're nothing to me." And then he just looked at me and he goes, "You're nothing, nothing." But then afterwards, it kept replaying in my head. The thing that I remember most, almost more than the assault itself, was just being told I was nothing.
I wish you would have punched him square in the balls. A
good dick punch.
That's where, if you're going to do that. She apparently wasn't wearing any underwear with the dress. And so when he put his hands down her pants with this,
Wait, was it pants or a dress? Those are two different things.
No, the dress. And, he was like, "I thought you liked me." It's like, dude, I mean, even if...
That sounds about right.
I mean, honestly, that sounds like him.
Yeah.
I thought you liked me. I thought it was, your lovable gross uncle.
Oh, speaking of that, because you called him gross uncle, this is a super chat early, not a super chat, but a comment earlier. When I snickered out loud, it was because someone put in the chat, I think it was Zaki Chowdhury. He said something like, Biden got more names than a rapper, got more nicknames than a rapper or something like that. I don't know, whatever it was.
Yeah.
That was hilarious, whatever it was. I'm not scrolling back out there. But yeah, that sounds about right. Maggie Smith, two more super chats and then I'm leaving. Maggie Smith says 21 trillion missing DOD and HUD. Where's my 21 trillion?
That's a good point.
Nice. Marcus Will, didn't Warren knock out Bloomberg, not Bernie?
Say that again?
Didn't Warren knock out Bloomberg?
Yeah.
Not Bernie.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't say Warren. I didn't say Sanders knocked her out.
Oh, that's what he said. A rapper out of Shaolin.
Oh, yeah.
He got more nicknames than a rapper out of Shaolin. Yeah. Maggie Smith says it was a skirt. All right. Yeah, so, don't forget, before you leave out, if you enjoy the show, give it a thumbs up.
Like. Yeah.
It's nice. It makes him feel all warm and fuzzy inside. But more importantly, it helps know what content that you guys enjoy. Make sure that you're subscribed. I'm closing out the video. I'm done. Make sure that you are subscribed. Thank you for tuning in to Contributor Appreciation. My bad, because I haven't been on it for Contributor Appreciation. But from now on, I'm going to do like I did this week and was like, babe, we're doing Contributor Appreciation on Sunday. It's going to happen, and then make it happen. Because while the weekly show is very good, 12 to 2 p.m. every weekday Eastern, here on the Progressive Soapbox, Bob Schlehuber and Jamarl Thomas host the Political Misfits on Sputnik Radio, all that good stuff. But it is nice to have the original content that 27,000+ people have come to know and love. So thank you for everyone that is subscribed. One more super chat popped through from American Patriot. Ooh, where did that come from? American Patriot says, Jamal, I am a Trump guy, but I watch your show.
Welcome.
Your top tier intellect and your analysis is spot on. I appreciate the passion. But that's what people came for, because I think a lot of people come to your show for your passion. And like when we used to be like in the smaller apartment and like you'd be in the room next door and then you'd be waking me up because you're like people are here for that. So you got to keep giving them that, and I will join in as often as I can to help stream contributor appreciation. You look like you're looking for a video while I'm closing this out.
You're closing. I am looking for something.
You're looking for something.
Yeah.
Marcus Will says, my point was Sanders versus a billionaire. Sanders is still weak.
So here is, let's close it out on a happy note. We started it with a good note.
You guys have a good weekend.
On a good note.
Stay safe. What is this?
Again, we're dealing with the corona outbreak and the things that people do to get
quarantine, isolation, day number, whatever.
La parte del CISA ya quedó, ya solamente tenemos que registrar autonomía curricular y el área socioemocional de los niños, porque esa parte no está quedando bien.
I love that.
He ran into the wall.
He was trying to get away. Like, it's, you know,
he's like, oh shit,
I'm on TV.
Okay, so wait. So there was one time where, now this didn't affect anybody because the way that room was set up, the camera was facing this way and the door was behind that. But I remember one time I was fucking around and I opened the door and swung the door open and was mooning you and didn't know you were on camera. But never in front of the camera. Thankfully, the way that his is set up.
Yeah, it's blocked off.
There's nothing that's going to be over there. Like the dog might run in or something like that. But yeah, there's been shenanigans that happen. But the one that we showed at the beginning, can we play that one again? Do you still have that?
Yeah.
Where she climbed on the dude's neck. I don't know if she was trying to murder him.
No, I think
that
she was
just
fucking
seemed
around.
excessive because she got up there and then she like full on leaned back. That was purposeful.
Yeah, I don't know what she was trying. Well, I think she was trying to just do, like, hold her hands up.
Yeah, this is a poor.
Hey, babe.
Yeah, because that.
Hold on, guys. This is on my shoulders. What's going on?
That is.
I don't know what she was thinking. What are you thinking? Oh, this is so fucking funny.
That's
She's
so
determined.
fucked up. Not up there, so shut.
Hold on, guys. This is on my shoulders. What's going on?
Listen to the clip. He's like, ooh. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, that's so fucked up.
Like, what is she thinking? Like, in her head, is she thinking like he's going to be able to support me?
Hey guys, give me a comment in the chat if you want me to sabotage Jamal's video next week. Yeah.
He's not screaming Jesus Christ. He's like, Jesus Christ.
Well, could people see him? Oh, I did see one the other day where this lady was on like a Zoom meeting where it was like 10 different people that had their video on, and she forgot that her video was on live, or that she forgot she was still in the meeting, and she takes the laptop or whatever it is into the bathroom and sits down on the toilet and proceeds to like, somebody said take a poo. I can't verify that that's what she was doing or not, but she definitely takes it in, pulls down her pants, and decides to relieve herself in whatever manner it was, and people in the chat were like, what the fuck? Yeah, that's an appropriate response.
That might not need 30,000.
This is something Trump doing, and we ended on this.
You said it on Sean Hannity's Fox News. You said that
why don't you people act? Let me ask
questions. The first is, you've said repeatedly that you think that some of the equipment that governors are requesting.
I'm telling you right now, the you people thing is not going to go over all that well. And
you people? That's what I said. I was like, you people.
People.
What the?
They don't actually need. You said New York might not need 30,000. You said it on Sean Hannity's Fox News. You said.
You know, why don't you people act? Let me ask you.
You said
why
some
don't
states.
Why don't you act in a little more positive? It's always trying to
My
get
question to you
get you. And you know what? That's why nobody trusts the media anymore.
My
That's
question
why
to you is, how is that going to
Excuse
impact?
me, you didn't hear me. That's why you used to work for the Times and now you work for somebody else. Look, let me tell you something.
What?
Be nice. Don't
Mr.
be
President, my
threatening.
question
Don't
is-
be threatening. Be nice. Go ahead.
My question is, how is that going to impact how you fill these?
You're not in it on this.
Amazing. That's amazing. Well, the you people, he was referring to journalists. So, you know, let's be fair on that part. But that's still a horrible, you know, it's not her job to be nice to you. Her job is to try to get to some level of the
I have
truth.
to ask questions and follow up on the stupid shit that you say. Oh,
In fact,
Bernie just emailed me. Let's see
the
what
fact
Bernie
of the
just
matter
said.
is, she is right that Trump went out there and said that they didn't necessarily need the ventilators. In fact, I think I even showed that video earlier today with Trump saying that. Meaning,
We did.
He is lying.
We're not playing it again. You got to rewind.
A
No,
lot
we're
of the
leaving.
numbers that are being said in some areas are just bigger than they're going to be. But I have a feeling that a lot of the numbers that are being said in some areas are just bigger than they're going to be. I don't believe you need 40,000 or 30,000 ventilators. You know, you go into major hospitals sometimes, they'll have 2 ventilators, and now all of a sudden we order 30,000 ventilators.
Yeah, he did say it. He did say it. Let's just be very clear. He did say that. I'm always, why lie about that, right? I mean, if you're going to make that argument of like, we don't need that many ventilators, and then somebody says, well, you said you didn't need that many ventilators. It's like, I never said that. I never said that. Is it just when you say it the second time around, or when somebody's saying it to you, you realize how stupid that fucking sounds? Is that what it is? I mean, because
I don't like to be called out on my shit.
I know, but he's on television.
I don't like to be called out on my shit. It's mean.
And she point out,
be nice.
And she points out, hey, you said they didn't need that many ventilators. I mean, why don't you think that? I never said that. Why can't you just be nicer to me? Why can't you be nicer to me? There's a lot of clips like that, by the way, where he's losing his shit when they're asking him questions about him fucking up. And keep in mind, that is in the context of this. The U.S., #1 epicenter of the coronavirus. Be nice to me. I'm Donald Trump. Be nice to me. I know I'm getting people killed, but be nice to me.
Cowside is talking about you doing more shows dedicated to strategy.
That I do like, but I don't.
He said do more of that.
Power in that process. I try to give
Why
advice.
don't you?
And I try to point out like these are the things that you need to do to win or to change your what you're trying to accomplish and everything else. And usually Sanders is like 2 weeks behind me saying something like that, but what he needs to do, he just doesn't have it in him to do. Like, you know, you should have never. If you're massively concerned about the black vote, then your ability to get that vote is either going to come with the sword or the ink pen. And sometimes the ink pen is not necessarily going to do what you need. Meaning, you can say and write whatever you want. That's not. They're not. That's not their reason.
Wait.
The strategy ones are fine. The strategy videos are fine, and I think I do those. It just kind of depends on what's
It's just
going
like
on.
they want more of that. And then, of course, there's a couple people in the chat. They're talking about they want to see some more UFO stuff, too.
Oh, every Wednesday we get UFO stuff.
I know, but separate.
Oh, every Wednesday.
No, that's not true. Every Wednesday you give something.
Well, most
that
of the time
is,
UFOs.
Off the beaten path.
All right, so let's
end it
let's
because
end this. But just one last thing, and I'll end it.
no, we gotta end it on a good note. Oh,
Elizabeth Warren, who said she was for Medicare for all, didn't support the person who also was Medicare for all, while getting money and getting votes and pulling away support from the person that was for those things. She gets out the race, and right now you have a teen who died of COVID-19 was denied treatment because she didn't have health insurance. U.S. woman gets $34,927.43 bill for coronavirus treatment. Laid off workers now worry about health care during crisis. The United States' broken healthcare system is why the coronavirus is set to explode in America.
All facts.
But snake emojis. Snake emojis. Like, share, subscribe. She cares about the snake emojis more than the actual real people. Meaning, this
we
is
know what it
something
means.
that's
We know what it means.
Real.
You gotta leave it. You gotta do like a mic drop. You just gotta say that and be like,
snake emojis.
Have a good night.
Snake emojis. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.